What is a safety tip everyone should know about? As a lifelong Floridian, I see this all the time here and elsewhere in the news. In the event of a disaster, stay the frick away from downed power lines. Don't walk along the street with them. Don't drive your car over them. Don't take selfies with them. They're thunder noodles and have been known to kill. I live in Michigan and there are constant SARs on the radio by the energy company saying this exact thing. If you have a skin mole that has blurry edges, isn't symmetrical, is a weird shade of red, weeps fluids or acts like an open wound that won't heal, you might have skin cancer. Go to a doctor immediately. Melanoma kills fast. If you're treating a gunshot victim while waiting on an ambulance, the best thing you can do is apply constant pressure to the wound. Bind it if you can. But, whatever you do, absolutely do not remove bandages if they get too bloody. Just add more. Don't give the wound any chances to bleed out more than it already is. Applies to any bleeding wound. You cannot drink the waters from cactuses in emergency due to acidity and toxic alkaloids, which causes vomiting, diarrhea and mass dehydration, especially when you're hungry or thirsty. And some cacti will make you trip balls. Oh, I have a really good one. In the event of a disaster, such as earthquake or flood, the drinking water system frequently becomes contaminated. Therefore you need to shut off the intake valve to your water heater. Then your water heater becomes an emergency drinking water tank. Sharp tools are safer and easier to control than dull ones. This goes for basically anything with a blade, whether it's a saw blade, utility knife, chisel, or simple kitchen knife. You are more likely to slip, lose control, or kick back with a dull blade. Also, usually when using a dull tool, you have to apply more pressure to get it to do what you want it to do. So if it slips and, say, cuts your hand, you're applying more pressure than you would if it was sharp. If confronted, it's far better to run away if at all possible rather than try to fight your attacker, even if you think you are a badass. It's easier to get your honor back tomorrow than your front teeth. Don't say someone call an ambulance, do it yourself, or directly tell one person to do it. Don't move someone injured unless there is an imminent danger to the victim. Puncture wounds. The puncture object acts as a cork. Leave it in until medics arrive and let them deal with it. Learn CPR for adults and children. The same goes for choking techniques like Heimlich. Yeah, in first aid training for my job they taught to not say someone find an ambulance or someone get me a need, but to point to them and say you in the red shirt call an ambulance, even touch them if possible, in a non-threatening way obviously. If everybody else is staying on the beach, don't go running into the ocean. They might all be staying on the beach for a reason. Like jellyfish. I learned the hard way so you don't have to. The ocean near where I live is extremely dangerous. It's rough and cold year round, with big waves close to the beach. Going in past your ankles is a risk, and going in up to your knees is seriously dangerous. But every so often there are still stories like person from out of town visits, tries to swim surf, immediately drowns. If you have been on the fence for a while about being too cold to continue, in a backcountry situation, you are already too cold. Immediately make emergency efforts to get warm. Being hypothermic severely clouds your judgment. Never get into a vehicle if someone is trying to kidnap you. If you can help it, it's better to fight and scream as much as you can because once you get in the vehicle your chances of survival go down significantly. One of the few occasions where you should absolutely fight a gun or knife, assuming you can't run away. Better to get stabbed or even shot at a place you might receive treatment than wind up unharmed at a second location where worse things likely await. Head injuries can take hours to manifest. Go see a doctor even if you think it was minor. If you wait, it may already be too late once you start showing symptoms. When boiling a pot of water, turn the handle inwards towards the center of the stove counter. That way somebody, especially a kid, won't come by and knock it over or grab it and pull it over on themselves. Oil too. I've seen someone get burned because he was frying something and he knocked the handle that was pointing out. You're more likely to be attacked in a transitional space, going into and out of buildings, cars, and especially between the two. You let your guard down because you're thinking about what you're going to do when you get there, not what you're doing right now and not what's going on around you. Stay alert. Stay safe. Deep dents in canned foods, especially on a seam, can be a sign of botulism or bacterial contamination and should be avoided. Bulging cans are a really bad sign too. Do not eat. If your child goes missing in your home, first check any spots that would be dangerous for them to be, near water heaters, sump pumps etc. Then check their common hiding spots. Check all cars. Children occasionally climb into cars then can't get out because of child locks in the back seat. Young kids especially don't think to try every door. That is a portion of hot car deaths every year. Worked in a CNC machine shop. I was told the top 3 rules were: 1. Know where the emergency stop button is on every machine. 2. If you wouldn't touch it with your dong, don't touch it with your finger. 3. If something falls, it hits the floor. Don't try to catch anything falling. One more. Working around any spinning machinery with gloves, loose fitting clothes or hair is asking for very serious injury. If you get bitten by an animal that you even think is rabid, get vaccinated right away. Rabies is a brutal way to go out, and if you miss your window there's nothing that can be done. And if you miss your window there's not much that can be done. If you miss your window, there is nothing that can be done. FTFY, rabies, once symptoms show, is almost guaranteed to be 100% fatal in humans. There are shockingly few odd cases in written history where people have survived late-stage rabies. When walking down the street with a one-shoulder bag, keep it on the building side of your body, not the side on which people pass you. It makes the bag harder to snatch. If asked for the time on the street, don't check your phone. Check your watch, but do so by lifting your wrist to within your field of view. Don't look down at your wrist. If you don't have a watch, then say you don't know the time. Be cautious if a person asks you to look at something, like that car behind you. Collectively, these tips will help avoid some basic mugging tricks. I often see a lot of snark and jokes about airline safety. Is putting up my tray going to save my life if we crash? Thing is, yes. All the safety regulations exist for a reason. Listen to the safety briefing and read the card in the pocket in front of you, even if it's your 1000th time flying. Take a second to check if the life vest is present under your seat, even if you think you're only flying over land. Quickly check where your nearest exit is. Put up your trays and fasten your seatbelts. Turn off your cell phone. Put your bag under the seat in front of you instead of between your feet. They're all just minor things that aren't recommended to annoy you but to potentially save your life in an emergency. Most air traffic accidents aren't planes just blowing up in midair. They're things like rough landings with gear collapses, runway excursions, engine fires, emergencies that are survivable if you know how to react, and which can become deadly if you trip over your backpack, get jammed into your seat by your tray, or can't find your way out in dense smoke. Listening to 3 minutes of safety instructions could buy you those extra 15 seconds you need one day. It's not a high price to pay. Just because you have a 4-wheel drive vehicle doesn't mean you can still go 80 miles per hour down the fricking highway when it's 10 degrees Fahrenheit outside and snowing. If you get a whiff of really bad BO when you're hiking in the woods, chances are you are downwind from a bear. Stay alert. There's a principle in safety called Heinrich's pyramid, and while the precise numbers are open for debate, the general principle is that after a certain number of unsafe acts you will have a serious injury or fatality. This is typically used for workplace safety, but the point is, every time you decide that you don't need that piece of safety equipment, or you can skip that one step even though the book says to do it, you're ticking down the clock until a serious accident happens. In Heinrich's original, he posited that for each serious accident, major injury fatality, there would be about 30 accidents with minor injury, and 300 unsafe acts. So eliminate those minor unsafe acts, shortcuts etc., and significantly reduce or eliminate the corresponding number of serious accidents. Beekeeper here. I know another beekeeper who never wore any of the protective clothing. Old school. Until one day he slipped and dropped an entire a box. He woke up in a bathtub full of ice when his son found him. Now, if he gets stung even one time, he could die. Suits up completely, but still a beekeeper. If you're spray painting, or painting in general, but especially lacquer-based paint, something and you're using primer before paint, Make sure the primer is compatible with the paint. It can cause a chemical reaction and self-ignite if they aren't. Also wear a mask when spraying anything. FAST. For strokes. F equals face drooping. Does one side of the face droop or is it numb? Ask the person to smile. Is the person's smile uneven? A equals arm weakness. Is one arm weak or numb? Ask the person to raise both arms. Does one arm drift downward? S equals speech difficulty. Is speech slurred? T equals time to call 911. Comma T equals time to call 911. T equals register the time of event. The time between event and treatment impacts a decision what treatment will be given. If you're wondering if maybe you should be wearing safety gear, glasses, helmet, gloves, hard hat, the answer is always yes. This is a good one. My father used to say that if you're wondering if it's dark enough to turn on your headlights, the answer is always yes. The really bad people who want to do really bad things look for weakness. They test and probe. It's awful that the best we can hope for is that we avoid what some other person might be victimized with. But that's nature. Pay attention to your surroundings. Watch to see if anyone is watching you. Any stranger that offers you something or has a question that doesn't feel right, that's the moment to keep yourself vigilant. Don't put on a false front, but don't be weak. Have good body posture. Speak clearly. Use short simple statements. And be rude if you have to. No thanks, I'm good, or firmer if you think it's necessary. Don't let anyone stop you from walking. No is a full sentence. If they get physical, frick. If they even touch you, scream and yell and don't let them get you away from the public area, away from light and people. We often have the impulse to not make a scene. Frick that. Make the biggest fuss you've ever made. Learn to listen to your instincts and intuition. They aren't always right, so you should evaluate them, and then proceed. Also the biggest thing here is if your gut tells you something is wrong. GTFO. That's your subconscious picking up on signs of danger you haven't consciously noticed yet, and you can never go wrong by just getting the heck out of a sketchy situation. Be present in the moment in all that you do. From my experience, personal and professional, absent-mindedness is the #1 cause of preventable accidents injuries. A few things I learned from scouts. A 9V battery can ignite steel wool. Dry lint is also really flammable. Consider taking some indifferent plastic baggies on your trip as they don't add much weight. Drinking from stagnant water is also extremely dangerous. Look for running water instead. Remember, kids, it's always better to be prepared to have it and not use it than need it and not have it. AIUI. No source of wild water can be considered safe. Always boil water before drinking if you can. Conversely, nothing living in that water is going to make you sicker than being dead of dehydration. If it comes down to it, keep yourself alive now and deal with giardia in the hospital after you get rescued. No matter how cute the wild animal is, don't approach it. It's not worth it. If it's staying still, that's because it's terrified and thinks it has no way to escape. This is not a good time to try and make friends. Never mix ammonia and bleach. It produces chloramines, which for regular conversation, let's just call that akin to producing chlorine or mustard gas, and it can kill you. When it's raining or snowing during the day, and you need to drive your car, turn your headlights on. Headlights are not only for you to see, they are for other people to be able to see you. This is so important. Keep in mind that other drivers expect you to have your lights on in these conditions, so if you don't, you're not going to be seen. Buy a glass breaker with seatbelt knife and keep it in your car. It's a couple bucks and it may save your, or someone else's, life. And keep it in the center console within reach of the driver. If you're alone and stuck because of your seatbelt and it's in your glove box, it may as well not be there. After large fires, ash will continue to fall to the ground. All fresh water outside will be laden with ash. Ash and water produces lye, which is poison. After fires, try to refresh and replace water outside for wandering animals. Don't merge back in front of a semi-truck until you can see where its steer, front, tires meet the pavement. Then keep going. Truckers don't leave big gaps in front of themselves in traffic out of the kindness of their hearts. They do it because trucks are hard to stop even with powerful air brakes, and the kinetic energy in an 80,000 truckload combo traveling at 65 miles per hour would turn you into a fine pink mist if they hit you. Way too many drivers don't know how to act around semis, at their mortal peril. Source: I'm trucker. This could apply to any merge. Don't get over until you can see the entire front of the car you're passing in your rear view mirror, not your side mirror. Rear view mirror, you really never know. If you need to break open a car window using a tool, do not hit the middle, hit one of the corners. The middle of the window is reinforced to prevent it from being broken. If you're in a crowd and there's a possibility of a human crush, go with the waves of people instead of against it, and, when possible, go backwards to the left to get out of it. If you're rigid, you'll get pushed over and trampled to death, and you absolutely don't want to get to the front. I would say that if you randomly smell gas in your house, do not turn on any lights. It could cause a spark and explode your house, so evacuate. Don't turn them off, either. Leave everything electrical exactly as it is. When you double the speed of your car, your braking distance quadruples. This is why speeding, especially in residential zones, can be very dangerous. Don't spray hairspray in the bathroom while the bathroom exhaust fan is running. The fan will draw the sticky spray into the fan where it accumulates dust, lint, dirt, etc., which can eventually gum up the fan motor and create a fire risk. Also, clean your bathroom exhaust fan regularly. Most car troubles can be ignored for a short period of time. For example, check engine light stuff, but don't ignore shakes and shimmies. To add to this, never ignore a blinking check engine light. If you ever find yourself in possession of a firearm, 1. All guns are loaded, even if you just unloaded it. 2. Do not point the gun at anything you're not willing to shoot, kill, destroy. 3. Do not put your finger on the trigger unless you are trying to fire the weapon at that moment. This one won't apply to everyone, and you might think to yourself, but only a dumbass would do that, and you'd be right. But it happened to me today. Never just toss a razor blade into a toolbox and forget about it. Today I found that old razor in my toolbox, where I said I'd remember setting it. Sliced my thumb pretty good. Always keep an eye on trucks' indicators in case they're making a wide turn. I've seen so many people almost get ran down by trailers after trying to cut inside of a truck they didn't notice was turning. Hearing loss is cumulative. That loud lawnmower, chainsaw, music, even your vacuum cleaner are all slowly taking their toll. I stood in front of the speaker stack at a Slayer gig for about 30 minutes once because it felt amazing. The damage it's probably done is only just becoming apparent 7 years later. Firefighter here. Sleep with your doors shut at night. Helps prevent fire spread, smoke inhalation. Be able to crawl, blindfolded, out of every room in your house. Make sure everyone in your home knows what to do in the event of a fire, where to meet afterwards, etc. If you have kids, explain to them that firefighters may look scary in full turnout gear, but they cannot be afraid of us. A friendly reminder while I have your attention: check the batteries in your smoke detector. They truly are lifesavers. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.